The 2023 Oscar nominations have dropped, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your thoughts on the 2023 Oscar nominations. Biggest snub, biggest surprise, the nomination that put the biggest grin on your face. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of it. As we go into this prestige films Oscar nominations, that's not really my area of expertise. I'm better at talking about movies about grown-ups in cosplay in space punching CGI characters. That's more kind of my level of maturity, but still, I love movies. This is the biggest awards show for movies, so I wanted to talk about the nominees just a little bit. I'm not going to go through every single category because I don't have thoughts on every single category, but I will go through the main ones and the ones that I had something to say about them. I'll have a link to a website that has the full list of nominees, and I'll have chapter markers down below so you can skip to the section of nominees that you want to hear my thoughts on. And let's get started. First up, Best Animated Feature, we have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Go's Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. Now, I haven't seen Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio or the Shell movie yet. Two movies I meant to see. The Shell movie in particular, my wife was trying to get us to watch for a long time, and we just missed it. Of the three that I have seen, I loved Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I thought The Sea Beast was good, but I didn't feel like best of the year. Like, I didn't get that vibe from it. And I was not a fan of Turning Red. So based off the three that I have seen, Puss in Boots is the one that I would pick. I thought that movie was just great. Even on just on an animation level, it has great animation. But I've only heard phenomenal things about the two movies that I haven't seen. So that could change once I check those out. Then we got Best Visual Effects. We got All Is Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and Top Gun: Maverick. Now, how did Top Gun: Maverick get nominated here? I was informed that there were no visual effects in this movie. That was always them flying jets the entire time. But to that point, you can't tell the difference between what is people in jets and what is visual effects. That's when you have done visual effects right. At the same time, this shouldn't be a category. They should just hand Avatar: The Way of Water this statue immediately. It's almost insulting to have anyone in the same category as Avatar: The Way of Water, because that's just like this whole other level of immersion and having seamless transitions between live action, CGI, and doing just remarkable things. Then we have Best Original Song with Applause from Tell It Like Warren, Hold My Hand from Top Gun, Lift Me Up from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. We have Not To from RRR, and This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is always a strange category to me because some of these songs are literally only in the credits for the movie. This is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't remember this song. I really liked Everywhere All at Once. I don't remember there being a song that could be nominated for this category. And so it's always struck me as kind of one of these weird ones because the song doesn't even really need to tie into the movie, doesn't need to be featured throughout the actual runtime. So I normally don't have too much of an opinion on this one. I just wanted to comment on it as a very odd category because I don't really know what to do with these songs and what gets nominated. Of these, Not To from RRR is by far the one that just kind of like pops out when you're watching the movie and becomes like an iconic sequence that ties to the song itself. But it's because out of the blue, the movie turns into a musical. You have this fantastic dance number, puts a huge grin on your face. It has character development. There's like so many layers to the song being included. And when I think Best Original Song, in terms of like how it plays into a movie, that's what comes to mind for me. Not like, you know, at the very end of Top Gun, the song that just happens to be playing when Tom Cruise jumps into his plane and flies off with his girlfriend. Like, that's not what I think of. And so it's a weird category to me, but I have to go Not To because that's the one that like pops by far the most for me. Best International Feature, All Quiet on the Western Front, Argentina, 1985, Close, EO, and The Quiet Girl. To be clear, I have not seen any of these films, but I have to throw a question out to you that are watching. Is RRR not, does it not qualify for this category? Or is this like the craziest non-nomination or snub of the year? Like, how is RRR not in here? Like, am I missing something? I could be missing something, but how on earth is, if RRR is not nominated for just Best Picture period, which it should have been, how is it not nominated in this category? What am I missing? Best Film Editing, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, and Top Gun Maverick. Now, so I haven't seen Tar, so I can't chime in too much on that one, but Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Top Gun Maverick are movies that, due to the nature of the film and the style of them, they have like bonkers achievements when it comes to the editing and cohesiveness that kind of goes along with them for different reasons. Like Top Gun Maverick, they talk about how much footage they had to film and everything they had to try and do to make these airplane sequences thrilling, but also something that you could understand, where there's a sense of like geography for what you're watching. And they were able to pull that off. But to do that, I mean, they just had so much footage that they had to go through to cut between all these different things. Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's so much happening so quickly with these shots and cutting between everything. Just so many cuts, but you can follow what's happening. And then with Elvis, you've got this bananas Baz Luhrmann like hyperactive film where you feel exhausted in the first 90 seconds because it's so intense with how it's doing everything, with these just transitions between shots in the past and everything taking place, that it's almost like those three movies are wildly different from each other, but the fact that those are nominated here means something wildly different from Banshees being nominated. Like, these are like just these tremendous achievements of tricky editing, and then you get to Banshees and it's invisible editing. That the best editing is the editing that you don't see, that kind of thing. It's just fascinating the way that kind of like why different things are nominated in the same category. Best Original Screenplay, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness. Once again, I have not seen Tar yet, but I have seen the other movies nominated. And Triangle of Sadness feels to be one of these movies that was got a number of nominations this year, that it feels like there's two different groups of people. There's a group of people who's like, that was good, but man, it was too long. They needed to trim it down. It ran out of steam at a certain point in time. And then there's the group of people who like give it all the nominations. And so in my mind of how all the nominations it got, I'm a bit confused because I just see a number of just really big problems with the way the film played out. And then obviously you got all these nominations. So I look at the screenplay and I go, like, there's just the way it's structured. It could have been better, but someone else thought it was a lot of other people apparently thought it was really good. And then Banshees, like an example of excellence and simplicity, of just like great dialogue. There's not a ton of moving parts, but obviously a movie that really resonated with the people that have seen it. And it's not the big flashy stuff. But then you get to Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it's like all flash. Like it's like this wild, crazy idea with comedy, action, multiverse, weird, wacky stuff, Ratatouille. Same category, right next to each other, wildly different screenplays, wildly different things. And then you have Fabelmans, kind of like a classic Best Picture nominee of the ones in here, the most old school. Spielberg's been around for 50 years, mid-70s, and delivers like a classic kind of Best Picture family drama type film. It's in there too. That's where sometimes these categories get wild of like what you're comparing in there. Best Adapted Screenplay, All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion, Living, Top Gun Maverick, and Women Talking. Now, quite literally, just a few days back, someone DM'd me to ask, do you think that Top Gun Maverick could be nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay? And I'm pretty sure my response was, I don't think it can be nominated in that category because that's not what adapted means. Apparently, my understanding of adapted is very wrong because there's two different sequels in this category, and my understanding of adapted was not sequels, it was adapted from a play, a book, television show, something in that regard. So I have learned that my understanding of adapted was wrong, and I will remember that for the future. And as for the person who asked me, you were right, I was wrong. Now, here's one of the fun things to kind of like dive in on Top Gun Maverick. The credited screenwriters on it are Aaron Kruger, Aaron Warren, and Christopher McQuarrie, with story for Peter Craig and Justin Marks. So a lot of times when you see a movie that has like 5 different credited screenplay and story credits, that's a bad sign. It just got nominated. Obviously one of the best received films this year by all metrics. Here's the one I want to pause in though. Aaron Kruger. You can go in and look up this guy's track record with screenplays. He's written a lot of very poorly received films. A lot of movies that people criticize the screenplay, the story. And here he is nominated for an Oscar now. And I think what a lot of times what you have to realize about screenwriters is that they are hired to do a job, in which case they're doing what the director, the producers are telling them to do. And they have all these they're put in a box and they have to write to that box to make the movie that the producer thinks will make the most money or what the director wants. And then their name is slapped on as the screenwriter because they did write the screenplay. And you realize a lot of these people are a lot more talented than sometimes we give them credit for. And another example of this in the very recent future, and just to go on a little bit of a rabbit trail, there's a guy named Craig Mazin who wrote, directed superhero movie. He wrote Hangover 2, Hangover 3, and was largely known as this guy that wrote really lowbrow comedies, and no one took him seriously as a screenwriter. Like, this guy, all he writes is like just very simplistic humor. He's also the guy that created and wrote Chernobyl and is currently getting wild acclaim for writing, producing The Last of Us. For 15 years, all he was given was lowbrow comedies, so he wrote lowbrow comedies. Once he's given something else, all of a sudden he's this highly acclaimed writer. So that's a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but you got to realize that screenwriters are hired guns. They're hired to do a job. And sometimes that means writing something that's not going to be the most well received, but it's what the producer thinks will make the most money. Anyway, back to the actual category itself. I haven't actually heard much chatter about Living at all. I haven't seen All Quiet on the Western Front. I haven't seen Women Talking. I have seen The Glass Onion. So I can't chime in too much on this category, but obviously I love Top Gun Maverick, so that's the one that I'm excited for. Then we're to Best Supporting Actress: Angela Bassett, Black Panther Wakanda Forever; Hong Chow, The Whale; Carrie Condon, Banshees of Inisherin; Jamie Lee Curtis, Everything Everywhere All at Once; and Stephanie Hsu, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I do apologize if I mispronounced her name. This is one of the most fun categories for me because almost all of these nominations are something interesting to me. Like, I look at all of them and go, oh, that's pretty cool. That's neat that happened. So just going down the list, Angela Bassett gets nominated for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I love this. I don't believe an actor's been nominated for the MCU up to this point in time. If you're going to kick one off, this is a great starting point. She is just great in that movie and just kind of on this other level. I mean, obviously Robert Downey Jr. is something special when it comes to playing Iron Man, and a lot of the cast is phenomenal and great performances, but just pure dramatic, give you chills acting, throne room scene in Wakanda Forever, it's this other level from what we've gotten in the MCU up to this point in time. So love that nomination. Hong Chow for The Whale. This actress, I saw her back 5 years ago in Downsizing. Not a great movie, but I watched the film and she's acting against 20-year A-lister Matt Damon, and she was stealing every scene that she was in. I was like, she's going somewhere. Like, I don't know. I don't think I've seen her in anything before, but I'm pretty sure she's going to have a great future ahead of her. And I didn't see her in anything until this fall. And then she shows up in The Menu, where she steals a bunch of scenes, and The Whale, where obviously she got nominated for an actor, an Oscar. So it's like one of those things of like, took 5 years to pay off. I was like, she's going somewhere. Finally, it's happened. Hopefully she starts appearing in a lot more things. And so like I said, like, she's great. And getting nominated is kind of some recognition of that. Carrie Condon, this is a fun one because like I've watched through Better Call Saul twice in the last 2 years. And she's kind of like she's an important but a smaller role in that. And I saw Banshees of Inisherin at Fantastic Fest. And you're watching like 4 movies in a day. So I didn't know a lot of details about a lot of the films that I went into. So I just went into it like not knowing any better. And she just pops up on screen. And it's her acting against, like these top tier actors. She's been, I just know her as like supporting actress in a TV show, and all of a sudden she's carrying scenes against Colin Farrell, and he's doing phenomenal, but she's like tracking right along with him. This is really exciting. Like when someone that's like a smaller part in like a TV show that you love, it's like great acting, and you just want everyone on that show to succeed. Here it is. Boom. She's nominated. Here's one that's really fun for me, interesting to me. So Jamie Lee Curtis is in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Hollywood legend Jamie Lee Curtis, A-lister Jamie Lee Curtis, who's still starring in movies. Like her career's not like on a lull or anything like that. She, in a Halloween movie last year, Jamie freaking Lee Curtis is in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And she's interesting in the movie, and she's nominated for an Oscar. And when people talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once, no one is talking about Jamie Lee Curtis. And I love that. I love Jamie Lee Curtis, but I also love the fact that she gives a phenomenal performance in a movie that's so interesting in of itself and has so many great performances that even though she's the biggest star power in the movie, even though she gives Oscar nominated performance, we're talking about everything else about the movie. We're talking about everyone else in the movie. We're talking about Kiku Kwan, and we're talking about the directors of the film. We're talking about Michelle Yeoh. That's cool. That's cool when you have a movie that the A-lister just disappears into it. Does a phenomenal job, but disappears into it. So that's pretty cool. And then we have Stephanie Hsu. I apologize once again for mispronouncing her name. Like, once again, like a movie where everyone did great. Everything about it is great. Everything about it is interesting. So it's competing against itself. Same category, 2 different ladies nominated for Best Supporting Actress. That's cool. Best Supporting Actor, Brendan Gleeson, The Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry Causeway, Judd Hirsch for The Fablemans, Barry Keoghan for The Banshees of Inisherin, and Kiku Kwan, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Once again, there's a movie in here where the acting is so good, where you have actors from the same movie in the same category competing against one another, with Banshees, like across the board, the whole ensemble for Banshees got nominated for Oscars, which it's a really good sign. And the movie itself, it's all dialogue based. So it would make sense that like it's carried entirely by buying into these performances and these characters. Interesting one here. I haven't seen Causeway yet, but Brian Tyree Henry, man, he is, him and his manager are managing his career very well. He's in a Marvel movie. He's in something like Bullet Train as the comedic relief. He's got voice work in like in the Spider-Verse movies, and he's nominated for an Oscar. Like, he's hitting all fronts, like dramatic acting, comedy, voice acting, mainstream stuff. He's got all of it. And when you're doing that with your career, you're in a really good place, opening a lot of doors for yourself. But the most exciting one in here, Kiku Kwan, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Of course, I love the Indiana Jones movies. Of course, grew up watching him as Short Round. I wasn't a Goonies person. I've actually only seen Goonies one time, and I watched it for the first time like 10 years ago. I don't know how, don't know why, but somehow I've only seen Goonies once. But just like this iconic child actor of the 80s that gave up on acting and then just decides to jump back in because he saw Crazy Rich Asians and saw maybe there's some potential there, and he's nominated for an Oscar. That's like just a cool story. It's like the kind of guy that you just want to root for. That's neat. That's just a great story. And he's great in the movie. And so I love that. Best Lead Actress, Cate Blanchett for Tar, Ana de Armas for Blonde, Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie, Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans, and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I haven't seen 3 of these movies, so I probably won't have as much to say here, but love that Michelle Yeoh is nominated and that Everything Everywhere All at Once is getting so much acclaim. Michelle Williams gave a compelling, interesting performance in The Fabelmans as kind of this mom that you want to root for, but she's a very flawed person with a lot of layers to what's going on with her. So either one of them are pretty cool performances from a Michelle. Best Lead Actor, Bill Nye for Living, Paul Mescal for After Sun, Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Colin Farrell for Banshees of Inisherin, and Austin Butler for Elvis. Now, I haven't seen After Sun or Living yet, but there's been a ton of chatter about Austin Butler and Colin Farrell and Brendan Fraser. And once again, 3 very kind of different performances. Like Colin in Banshees, there's a lot of subtlety to it of just someone whose feelings are hurt and what that kind of turns into. There's not a lot of the flashiness to it in certain ways, but it's that subtle believability. Austin Butler becoming Elvis. And that's a tricky one because Elvis impersonations are themselves iconic. And so trying to play Elvis for 2 hours and 45 minutes without going into impersonation mode and making me believe that you're Elvis, that's impressive. But it's also a performance that has to emote a lot, like a very broad spectrum of emotions. That's a big deal. And then, of course, Brendan Fraser as the whale. There's just some really heartbreaking, just like moments in there. Just, wow. This is the same guy that was George of the Jungle and was in the Mummy movies. Wow. This is amazing. And once again, of like different narratives that go along with the nominations with Colin Farrell. This is a guy that's kind of praised as an actor for 20 years now. I don't know how many times he has been nominated in the past, but him getting nominated isn't terribly surprising. And then you have Austin Butler, someone that's been acting for a while, but this is kind of like his star-making performance. And then Brendan Fraser, it's kind of that comeback story of someone that was huge in the 90s and zeros and wasn't as high profile the last decade. And in that time, the people that grew up watching Brendan Fraser movies are now film critics. And the landscape of the perception of Brendan Fraser has dramatically changed. And in that context, he gives his best dramatic performance that's Oscar nomination worthy. And all of a sudden there's like, everyone's rooting for Brendan Fraser to win. That's pretty exciting and interesting. Best Director, Martin McDonough for Banshees of Inisherin, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Schneidert for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Steven Spielberg at The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, and Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. Once again, I have not seen Tar yet. I have seen the other nominees. As I said earlier, Triangle of Sadness is one of those movies that it seems like the people that love it, or there's a pretty big gap between them and everybody else. And so I'm in that everybody else category of like, I don't know. There's some big issues with how this movie plays out and the pacing of it. So Best Director, that's an odd choice in my mind. A lot of these other ones, not terribly surprising, but once again, very different directorial styles than what you're seeing here. Spielberg, the 50-year veteran, delivers a classic family drama Best Picture nominee. Banshees, subtle, slow, thoughtful, dialogue-based, very different type of film. And then you compare both of those two movies to Everything Everywhere All at Once. Fast-moving, crazy, chaotic, trippy, weird, funny, kind of zombies, martial arts, like otherly beings, like wild. Same category. Like, how do you compare like the best of family drama, best of slow story about a friendship falling apart, thoughtful, intentional, and then hyperactive, trippy, weird. Like, so different, same category. And we've made it to the final category on here. Best Picture, All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. And as I look at this category, the big one that was huge disappointment here, no RRR. And back to what I said earlier, like, I don't know what happened here, but how RRR was not nominated in Best Picture or Best Foreign Film. I don't know if I'm missing something, I've overlooked something in looking through this, or if there's something at the tail in there. I don't get it. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how that goes down. Really disappointed it wasn't nominated for Best Picture. If you look at just the reaction, critically speaking, and everyone that's watched it, the reaction says everything that this movie should have been nominated. Maybe I can understand why it wasn't, because it's so different that, like, how do you factor in something that's so different from what you're used to? But mostly speaking, how on earth was that nominated? That not nominated? That's weird. I've seen almost all of these. I haven't seen Tar, I haven't seen Women Talking, and I haven't seen All Quiet on the Western Front. So for me, that's a great year that I've seen that many of the nominees. Normally, I've seen the reverse. I've seen 2 or 3, and I have to watch 7 before the Oscars to be able to chime in. Love that Top Gun Maverick was nominated. When you have a movie that critics are saying, this is a good movie, audiences love it, that's the movie that kind of moved people the most this year. The movie that people resonated with the most. And sure, it's mainstream. Sure, it's blockbuster. It's appealing to a broad audience. But that doesn't make a movie less cinema. That doesn't make it illegitimate. If it does it right, if it does it well, it should be nominated. And Best Picture nominees should be serious dramas. They should be trippy, weird things. They should be blockbusters. They should be what are the best in all the different categories of like what like that. That's the way it should be thought about. And so the fact that you look at this list and you have 2 different blockbusters in there, I think that's a good thing. That's the right direction for the Oscars to acknowledge blockbusters. As just because normal people love them doesn't mean they're not great cinema. And the fact that, like, we're at a point in time where, like, saying that almost feels a little bit weird in terms of Best Picture nominees, that's a bit odd. Look at the Best Picture nominees of the 90s, nominees and winners of the 90s, and they were almost all big hits versus the last 10 years where that's less common. This is, I think, a shift in the right direction. Other things in here, interesting that Elvis got nominated for, like, editing, Best Picture, but not director. It's fascinating because in particular with that, and, Best Actor, in particular with that movie, you look at Elvis, that is Baz Luhrmann. He's all over that. That's Baz Luhrmann is what you're seeing. The thing that made that movie, the movie that got nominated for Best Picture, it's Baz. You're 90 seconds into it, like, yeah, I'm watching a Baz Luhrmann movie. Didn't get nominated for Best Director. And argument of, was it too much? Was it too long? Was it too in your face? Sure. But then why is it nominated in some of these other categories at the same time? As I've said kind of all along the way, I think one of the things that's cool about Best Picture nominees is that they do feel pretty balanced this year. They haven't felt balanced a lot of the last several years, but you look at them and, Fabelmans is kind of a classic. I mean, it's Spielberg family drama. Everything Everywhere All at Once, such a 21st century film. And then blockbusters, you have movies with commentary like Triangle of Sadness, Women Talking. You have a biopic in Elvis, but it's a very distinct type of biopic. Haven't seen All Quiet on the Western Front, so I can't chime in too much on that one. But you just have a lot of different types of films in there. And I think that's what it should look like. I think without having looked at the nominees of the last 10 years, this feels like probably the most balanced list that they've had in a long time. And I think that's good. I think that's moving in the right direction. But how on earth is RRR not in there? What's my pick for the snub? No RRR, or not enough RRR in all of these nominees. Certainly in one of the best picture ones, that's my pick for the biggest snub. Anyway, those are kind of my chiming in. I do plan on doing at least best picture nominees ranked. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it because last year it was tough because I'd seen so few of the movies. This year it's pretty easy because I only need to watch 3 of them in the next 2 months. I will be doing that. I might do some other ones in there too. I might have some other rankings of some of the categories and stuff as we approach, as I just had a better year of watching, I guess. Either they did a better job of being more rounded and it overlapped better with what I watched, or I did a better job of watching things that got nominated. Some of that is because I went to Fantastic Fest and several of these played at Fantastic Fest and I probably wouldn't have seen them otherwise, and I was able to see them because of Fantastic Fest. Anyway, none of that matters for you. Let me know your biggest surprises, biggest snubs, thing that put the biggest grin on your face, all of that fun stuff down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.